Hello guys, welcome to episode number 11 of my horror game tutorial series. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to open the doors in-game. So let me start by showing it to you. So if I walk up to the door and press E, you can see the door opens, and if I go back and press E, you can see the door closes again. So what are we going to do today? We are going to write the interaction script, which is one of the most important scripts we are going to write in this tutorial series. We are also going to expand on it later on. I'm going to show you how to use layer masks. I'm going to show you how to do raycasts. I'm going to show you how to tag objects. And I think, yeah, that's about it. So we're going to cover a lot in this tutorial. I hope you understand everything. So, until I meet you in the Unity editor in just a second. So until then, hey guys, so now we're inside the Unity editor, and let's start writing the script. So go into your scripts folder, right click, create a C# script, and we're going to call this interact. Then open it up. This will take a second, and it will probably open up in just a minute. I should probably open Visual Studio before I do tutorials in the future. Okay, so now Visual Studio opened up, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that you can read what we're going to do. So the first thing we are adding is a public a public string, and a string is just a word. So basically everything you type in is a string. So even the word strings is a string. That sounds funny, but it is like how it is. So a string is just a word. That's the only thing you have to remember. So we're going to call the string interact button, and we're going to type in the name of the button that we're going to set up in the Unity editor. We are going to use as an interact button. I'm probably going to use the button, the key E, but I want to make it flexible so that I can change it later on if I want to do so. So the next variable we're going to need is a public float interact distance, and I'm going to set this to 3f. So the interact distance is the distance at which I'm able to interact with something, because if we go inside of here, and we have our player right here, and now imagine the player standing right here and is able to open the door from his position here. That would just look stupid and is unrealistic, and in some cases even game breaking. So we want to have a certain distance that the player has to be in to interact with objects. So I'm going to set this to 3 at the moment, but we're going to be able to tweak this later, of course. Then the next thing we're going to need is a public layer mask interact layer. So layer mask is pretty much, let me try to explain it like this. Of course, we don't want to interact with every object in our scene. So, oops, what just happened? Okay, that was weird. So, of course, we don't want to interact with this table, for example, or we don't want to interact with the sofa or with this picture. Perhaps we want to interact with the picture, but not in this tutorial. So, we only want to interact with the door and certain objects. So to do this, we are going to have a layer mask, which pretty much tells the player object right here right here, that the door is an interactable item and that the player can interact with it. So you can imagine it's something like a filter. Okay? So then, let me comment it for you so that you can remember it. So it's something like a filter. And then I'm going to add a public image, but you can see that there is no option for an image. This is because we have to expand this script. We're going to do this. Let me delete this line. We go up here where it says using Unity Engine. So what this stuff up here means is it means that we are using all the methods that Unity provides us, and we are also using everything that Windows gives us. Okay, so system.collections. And then we are going to use something more. We're going to use using Unity Engine, because it's something of Unity itself that we want to access, and we want to access the UI elements of the Unity Engine. So we are writing using Unity Engine.ui. And now, if I type in public image, now you can see that the image appears right here. And that means that I did everything right. And now we can access everything that has to do with the UI inside of the Unity Engine. UI is short for user interface, if you want to know. And this is going to be the interact icon. So this is going to be the picture of the hand to show the player that he can interact with this with the object. So let me write it out. So it's going to be the picture to show if you can interact or not. Okay, and then the last thing we need is a public boolean. Public bool, and this bool is interacting. So that checks if we are currently interacting. Sorry. So that we can only interact once with an object and until this interaction is finished, so that we don't, so that we are not able to interact with something else while we are interacting. That sounds complicated right now, but later on it will be more clearly when we are going to make the save and the lock of the save. So in the start method, okay, in the start method I want to first set the interact icon dot enabled is equal to false. So I want to make sure that the interact icon is set to false from the beginning. And I can also check if interact icon is not equal to null. So if there actually is an interact icon, because otherwise we would get an error and that's bad. Okay, so now we go to the update method, and now we're going to do something called a raycast. A raycast is, let me explain you inside of the Unity engine. A raycast is if I go under the player to the first person character, you can see that the first person character is a camera, right? And I don't know if you can see this, but there's this little white rectangle right here that represents our camera. And right in the middle of this camera, we are going to shoot a ray straight forward along the z-axis. And if this ray hits something in its way, then we check if we can interact with the object, and if so, and if we press the interact button, then we're going to interact with the object. So let's start writing the array. We first declare the variable, so it's array, and we're going to call this ray. And this ray is going to be a new ray. And this ray starts at transform dot position, so at the origin of the camera, and then goes transform dot forward. And the default forward vector in Unity is the Z, so the blue arrow right here. So the ray will start at the center point right here, and then just go straight forward in a line. And then we're going to make a new variable, and this variable is going to be a raycast hit. So in this variable we are going to save what we have hit, and we're going to call this hit. Or you could also call it hit info, but I'm just going to call it hit. Then I'm going to make an if clause. So if an if statement. So if physics dot raycast, and then we're going to write ray. So if the ray, this ray up here, if it hits something, so out hit. If it's within the interaction distance, so this basically means that if the ray hits something within the interaction distance, and if it hit the interact layer, so the ray only checks for hits within the interact layer, so everything that's not set to the interact layer will be ignored, and that's a good thing. So if this is the case, so if something was hit that meets all this criteria, then we're also checking if we are not is interacting. So if we are not interacting, could also write if is interacting is equal to false. It would also do. So if is interacting is equal to false, and then we want to first set the interaction icon. So interact icon dot enabled is equal to true, because we are so this stuff here just means that we are looking at something that can be interacted with. So we want to set the interact icon to true to make sure that the player knows that he can interact with the object. And then we are going to write if input dot get button down. So this line here means that if we get a certain button, there's a difference between key and button. The key is just a certain key on your keyboard, and the button is something you set up in the Unity editor, and we are going to do this in just a second. So if input.getButton down, and which button? The interact button. So if it's pressed, then we also check if, I know that's like a lot of if clauses. So if statements. If hit dot collider. So if this if the thing that we hit, the hit up here, if the collider has the tag, so we are going to compare the tag of it. And if the tag is equal to door, so right here, then we are going to call the change door state. So hit dot get component hit dot wait a second. Like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, hit.collider .get component, because we have the collider. So we want to get the component, which is the door, right? And then we want to change door state, write it like this, and then this should be it. So now the script is working. So let me go through the script one more time. So up here we set interact icon to be invisible. Then this stuff here shoots a ray. This here checks if we are not interacting, and this checks if we press interaction button. And now if it is a door, open/close it. So that's basically what our script is doing. And now if we go back into the Unity editor and we go to the first person character and apply the interact script. Now we have to set up a few more things before we can test. So the first thing is we need to go to file, edit, we go to the edit, project settings, input, then open the axis right here, increase the number to, let's say, 19, then call this interact, copy the name, then here where it says positive button, type in the button you want to, the key you want to use to interact. I'm going to use E, so just type in E and then enter. And now we set up the interact button. Then we go back to the first person character where it says interact button, paste the name. Then here the next thing we need to do is to apply the interact layer. So we are going to grab all the doors right here. Then we go up here where it says layer, go to add layer, and we are going to use layer 8 and type in door, or let's change that to say interactable. I don't know if this is a word, but I'm going to call it interactable. So grab all the doors, set it to interactable, and yes, change children. Now they're set to this layer. Then if we go to the first person character, change this here to interactable. And now the last thing we need to add is the interact icon. Before we do this, I'm going to jump back into the script for a second. And I'm going to type in the same thing we did up here in the start method. So if interact icon is not equal to null, so that we can test the script without an interact icon. Then paste it in here. And now I'm going to show you how to add the interact icon in the next episode, because this episode is becoming a little bit too long. And then if I start playing, and if I go to the door, press E. Oh, we forgot to see down here. That's actually a good thing that it didn't work. Down here we have something called the console. If I click on this, you can see that the console gave us an error, and the error says Unity exception tag door is not defined. So what does it mean if I double click? It also tells me which line has an error. So if hit.collider.compare tag door. So, and we read that we forgot that this tag is not set up yet. So we have to add the tag to the doors. So I'm going to close the console. Then I'm going to select all the doors right here. Go to where it says tag, add tag, plus, then type in door, door, because this is a door. And then I go to the 6 doors again, tag, and tag them as door. And now, if I go into the play mode and press E, you can see the door opened. And if I go to this door right here and press E, you can see the doors are opening. I just realized that this door has a wrong opening angle. We can fix this. And you can see that we can now open all the doors and also close them again. So the script is working. And in the next tutorial, I'm going to show you how to add the interact icon. And that's all for this tutorial. So if you enjoyed it, please leave a like. If you have any further questions, as always, write them in the comment section below. I will answer as soon as I can. And yeah, so until next time, bye guys.